this video, I'm going to create 3 CSS projects, including a unique search bar for a UI design, a YouTube link that you can add to your personal website, and finally, a flipping button with an unexpected twist. Now, the search bar that we are about to create was actually inspired by a video that Hyperplex made, where he roasted websites and then redesigned them. And in part 1 of that video, I believe he did the Rotten Tomatoes website, and this search bar is heavily inspired by that, so all credit for this goes to him. But no, I did not copy the code, I simply figured out how to make it myself. So to start out, we are going to create a form element, and then the first thing we need in here is an SVG image. And because I got inspiration from Hyperplexed, I wanted to use a similar icon that he used. It was a red tomato from Font Awesome, and for some reason, I guess I misunderstood how Font Awesome works, because in order to find it, all I did was type in red, and that doesn't quite make any sense, but I still find one that works. It's just this tired face, I guess. So I'm just going to copy that and then paste it inside of this form. Then after that, we are going to create a input element with a type of text for the search field. Then we're going to add a button, which will contain another SVG image. So I've copied a basic SVG image for the search icon, so I'm going to paste that in here, and you can see that it appears right there, and we're going to style this right now, actually, now that the HTML is finished. So the first thing we need to style is the form element itself, so we're going to give it a width of 600 pixels, and then a height of 100 pixels. Then for the margin, we are going to give 50 pixels for the vertical margin, and then for the horizontal, we're going to set it to auto so that it's centered in the middle of the page. Then for the border, it's going to be 2 pixels solid, and the color is going to be light gray. And then we're going to give it a border radius of 50 pixels. And that'll make the corners rounded. Now, in order to make the left and right sides of the border red, we're going to first set border left color to be red, and then we're just going to copy that line, paste it, and change left to right. Then we're going to set display to flex, and then we're going to center everything with first align items, and that's going to be center, and then justify content, and that's going to be space evenly. Now let's go ahead and style that SVG image, that tired face on the left of the search bar. So we're going to select it with the direct descendant selector. So it's going to be form, right angle bracket, then SVG. And we are going to set the fill color to be red, then the width is going to be 50 pixels, and the height is also going to be 50 pixels. Next, we're going to style the input box, and it is going to have a height of 50 pixels. Then we're going to set padding left to be 20 pixels, and that'll give it some space away from the tired face. The font size is also going to be 20 pixels, and then we're going to completely get rid of that border. Now later on in this project, we are going to set a background color whenever this search box is in focus. So for the future, we're going to set the transition property to be background color, and then the transition duration is going to be 0.25 seconds. Now let's go ahead and style that button that contains the search icon. It is going to have a height of 50 pixels, and then no border and no background. Then in order to size that search icon correctly, we're just going to select it very quickly, and then we can simply tell this element to inherit its height from the button. And as a final touch, whenever we hover on this button, we are going to want the cursor to change to be a pointer. Now, whenever we focus on the search field, there's a few styles we're going to want to set. First of all, we're going to get rid of the black outline, so that's going to be outline none. Then we are going to give it a partial border on the bottom with a special value of the background property, and that is linear gradient. Now, I don't expect you to understand what all of this means in the linear gradient, but basically we're just creating a bottom border that is red, and it takes up 30% of the space on the bottom of the search field. And then finally, we're just going to set the background color to be the hex value of CCC, which is a grayish color. And now, as you can see, this is working and our search bar is finished. Next, we're going to create the YouTube link for a personal website. So to start out, it's going to be an anchor tag. So let's just give it an href of a dead link here. And then inside of this, we are going to have a section with an ID of channel box. And then inside of that, we are going to have a div. And then finally, a span element with an ID of channel text. And inside of it, we're going to add the text, visit my channel. Now in the CSS, the first thing we're going to want to style is the entire channel box. So let's select that by the ID. We're going to give it a height of 100 pixels, and then a width of 30% of the screen, and then margin is going to be auto so that it's centered in the middle of the screen. Then we're going to give it a padding left of 80 pixels, which is for later when we have the YouTube logo as well as the blue background on there, so that we can keep the YouTube logo separated from the blue background. Then for any effects that we have, we're going to add a transition of 0.2 seconds, and then let's add the YouTube logo. So we're going to add it as a background image, and I've just copied the URL of a YouTube logo from a random source. So now we're going to set the background size to be contained, and now it is repeating, so we have to set the background repeat property to no repeat. And for some reason it's not showing up entirely, which is one of the quirks of CodePen. It tends to do that at times, and I can prove that by going to the original, and if I remove all of the styles except for the ones that we just added on the new version, then you can see that the logo is still there, whereas on ours it's not, so please pardon that. Now whenever we hover on the channel box, we're going to want to scale it down a little bit, so that is going to be the transform property. We're going to set it to a value of scale of 0.9. Now that YouTube logo is showing up, and you can see that whenever I hover over it with the mouse, it scales down a little bit. Now we are going to style the div element inside of the channel box. So the first thing we're going to want to do is set display to be flex, and then we're going to center everything as always with align items, and then justify content. Then the width is going to be 300 pixels, and then the height is going to be 100%. Then we are just going to inherit the transition from the channel box element, and then we are going to give it a background color, which is this bluish color that I have here. Now in order to give it that concave curve on the left side that we have in the original, there's a few properties that we need to set. First of all, we need to add another value to the background property, and that is going to be radial gradient. And by no means do you have to understand these values. You're perfectly welcome to just copy and paste it from the CodePen page or just follow along. So we are going to create a circle 20 pixels at -20%, 50%. Next, add a value of transparent, then transparent 100 pixels. Then we are going to copy that same hexadecimal color code, paste that in here with 100 pixels. Then we are going to set border top right radius to be 20 pixels, and then we are going to do the same thing for the bottom right. So let's just copy that and change top to bottom. Now for the channel text, first of all, we are just going to simply set the font family to be sans serif. Then we want the color to be white so that we can see it better. The font size is going to be 20 pixels. And then finally, the font weight is going to be bold. Now before I forget, we're going to want to set the box shadow property on the div inside of the channel box, which is this blue one right here, which is messed up because I did not finish that style. And above it, I have in a comment the syntax for the box shadow property copied from MDN, where we have the offset X, then the offset Y, then the blur radius, the spread radius, and finally the color. So the offset X is going to be 27 pixels, offset Y is going to be 12 pixels, blur radius is 5, the spread radius is 1 pixel, and then for the color, we're going to have an RGBA value, and it's basically just going to be blue but slightly more transparent. So it's going to be 0, 0, 256, and then in the alpha channel, it's going to be 0.2. And now you can see that this is all finished, though we do have that ugly background behind the YouTube logo, so we could have fixed that with a different image, but that is our second project completed. So last but not least is our flipping button. So first of all, we're just going to create an anchor element. It's going to be a dead link. Then we're going to give it an ID of flipping button. And then inside of that anchor tag, we are going to have a div element with an ID of sides container, and this is going to contain both sides of the button. And inside of that, first we're going to have a div with an ID of front side. Then I'm going to copy and paste that, except I'm going to change front to back side. And on the front side, we're going to have the text safe button, but then on the back side, we're going to have in all caps the word detonate. Now in the CSS, first of all, we're going to add some styles to the entire body. First of all, the height is going to be 100 VH, and that'll make it take up the entire height of the page. And then, as you probably guessed, we're going to set display to flex. Then we're going to, of course, align items, center, and then justify content. And that's also going to be center. And then finally, the background color is going to be this dark color that I copied from the CodePen assets. Now for the flipping button itself, it's going to have a width of 200 pixels and a height of 50. And then to center the text vertically inside of it, we're going to set the line height to be the same as the height. Then we are going to add an all-around padding of 5 pixels, and then the background is going to be the same color as the body. Now for the div element that contains both sides of the button, first of all we are going to set the position to be relative, then the width and height are both going to be 100%. Then very quickly we are going to align the text in the center, then we will set a transition of 1 second. And then finally, because we are going to be dealing with 3D animations, there is a property called transform style, and we are going to have to set that to preserve 3D. Now to actually add the flipping animation, we're just going to add a pseudo class to the flipping button element and then add the effect to the sides container. So when we hover over the button, we are going to set the transform property, and we are going to rotate along the x-axis 180 degrees. And as you can see, that is working, but of course it's not quite the effect that we want. Now for both the front side and the back side of the button, both of their positions are going to be absolute, and then the width and height are both going to be 100%. And because we're going to be doing 3D animations, we are going to want to set the back face visibility to be hidden. Now the border radius is going to be 50 pixels, font size is going to be 20 pixels, letter spacing is going to be 2, the color of the text is going to be white, and then finally, to make it look just a little bit better, we are going to set the font family to be sans serif. Now very quickly, to hide the detonate text, we're going to select the backside and then set the transform property to be the same thing as the sides container above, which was rotate x with a value of 180 degrees. And now you can see, now that it's all coming together, you can see that whenever I hover over it, first we see save button, but then when I hover, you can see the word detonate. Now for the front side, all we're going to do is give it a background color of green, just to give it a slight feeling of safety. But then for the back side, we're going to do the opposite and give it a background of red. Then we're going to give the backside a box shadow. The offset X is going to be 0, offset Y is going to be 5 pixels, blur radius is going to be 5 pixels, and then the color is going to be this light red. Now the button is pretty much finished, but there's one last thing that I wanted to add, and it's actually something that I stumbled across by accident. So I found out that if we remove the transform property from the back side, whenever we click on it, it looks almost like it's flattening out and disappearing, almost as if something is shutting down and there's an emergency, which is kind of a cool effect. So I'm just going to add it on here. So that's going to be a pseudo class of active, and whenever it's active, we're just going to set transform to be none. And then to make it look a little bit better, we are going to add a transition of 0.2 seconds. And now you can see whenever I hover over it, it shows the detonate with the box shadow and everything, and then when I click on it, it kind of just vanishes. So that's kind of a cool effect that I thought I should add. And that is the last of the CSS projects for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. I will have plenty of more content just like this coming up very soon. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.